be playing a very fun strategic solitaire game called Penguin. Penguin is a variant of a game called Adolf. You might be familiar with Adolf if you've watched my old free cell video. I played Adolf in that video. Adolf is considered to be the oldest relative of free cell. It's one of the earliest known games to use the free cell concept of a space that can hold a temporary card. And this game contains that same concept. And this game has, similar to Free Cell and Adolf, it has a very high win rate, over 99%. So this game should almost always be winnable. But sometimes it does require you to kind of work through it and plan your moves ahead in order to win. So let's deal the game out and I'll explain the rules. So, you're going to deal 7 rows of 7 cards each. However, the first card that you deal out is special. So, the first card we dealt is a Queen of Spades. This means that the Queen is going to be our base card for our foundations. So we continue dealing out the rest of the cards. And any time that we deal out a Queen, we're going to take the Queen and we're going to put it off to the side to start one of our foundations. So we'll put it over there. We'll continue dealing the rest of the cards. There's another Queen. We'll put that off to the side as well. Looks like I should move these over just a little bit. There's our last Queen. So we've got all our base cards, and the final Queen stays buried at the bottom of the first pile. So your first base card will always be buried. You'll always have to get it out. And the other base cards you always start with. And there we go. So the goal of Penguin Solitaire is to move all of the cards into 4 piles that we call the foundation piles. Each of these foundation piles starts with the base card, which in this instance is a Queen, and is then stacked up in suit until it has all 13 cards of that suit. So we would stack on top of the Queen of Diamonds, we would put the King of Diamonds, then we would wrap around to the Ace, so it would go Queen, King, Ace, and then we would continue stacking in ascending order, 2, 3, 4, etc., going all the way up until we reach the number below the base card, so the Jack. And then once we've reached the Jack, this foundation will have 13 cards in it, and it is complete. And once we've completed all 4 foundation piles, then we win the game. This arrangement of cards here is called the tableau. And on the tableau, we stack in descending sequence by suit. So, for example, a 9 of hearts could be placed on top of the 10 of hearts. The tableau also wraps around, which means we can place a king of clubs on top of an ace of clubs. If you manage to build a sequence of cards, for example, if we had 10, 9, 8 right here of spades, we can move all 3 of those cards as long as they build a proper sequence at their destination. So we can move the 10, 9, 8 of spades on top of the jack of spades. At the top here, we have one space above each tableau pile, and you're allowed to place one card in each cell at a time. Note that you do not need to have cells in order to move sequences of cards. In this game, sequences may be moved for free regardless of how many cells you have. If you manage to empty out a pile by moving out all of the cards, the empty space can only be filled by the equivalent of a king. So, the card before the base card. Our base card is a queen, so empty spaces can only be filled by jacks. And I believe that's all of the rules. So let's get started. And right off the bat, we can take this king right here and put it on top of the queen. So let's look and see if we have any other potential moves. Remember, we want to try to get down to this queen so we can start stacking up the club foundation. We could just start moving cards into the cells, but you don't necessarily want to start doing that just willy-nilly, because if you run out of cells, that can really cause problems. You want to make sure that if you're filling up your cells, you're doing it sort of thoughtfully. And just dumping all of these cards into the cells wouldn't necessarily be the best course of action, especially since getting the queen of clubs doesn't really help us all that much because the king of clubs is all the way over here. We would have to unstack this whole pile to get to it. Speaking of kings, where are our other kings? We've got one right here, and we've got one right here. All our kings are pretty deep in their piles. This is a pretty tricky one. We do want to get to those kings. Here's what I think I'm going to do. I think I am going to move these cards to the cells in order to get to that queen. But this 6 doesn't have to go to the cell. We can actually move it over here. So we used up 4 of our cells. We get the queen starting our 4th foundation. Now we can move a jack into this empty space. I think we're probably going to end up doing this jack right here. So let's move this jack to the empty space. Now I think we'll move this 5 right here. Unfortunately, moving this stack is going to be a little tricky because our 8 is all the way down here. We need to empty out another pile if we want to do that. I think this is going to be the one. So we'll do this. We'll move these 2 cards to our cells. This 10 goes over here. This 9 goes here. And our spade foundation is stacked up to king, which means we can take this ace and move it to the foundation. We can also take this 2 and move it to the foundation. Since the tableau is stacked in suit and the foundations are also stacked in suit, that actually means you can move cards to the foundation as soon as it's possible to do so. You don't have to be careful about accidentally moving cards to the foundation and regretting it. It's actually always okay to move cards to the foundation in this game. So that's pretty nice. Now we can also move this king to the foundation. Now we've got an open space there. And we can move this ace from our cells as well. So we've got 3 open cells to work with. And I think what we're going to do with those cells, we're going to move the 5, 6, and 7 to the cells. That lets us move the 3, 4, and 5 to the foundation. foundation. Now we can move the 8 to the cell. That frees the king. We can play that to the foundation. Then we can move this 9 of clubs onto the 10 over here. And then the 8 and the 7 can both come out of the cells. We can play this 8 to the foundation, the ace to the foundation. And the 2 of diamonds as well. Now I'm going to move this 10 to the cells here. That lets us take this 3. And we'll move this 5 to the cells and this 8. I don't know if that's the best course of action, but I think it's too late to go back on it now. We'll move this jack to the empty space and move the 10. Let's move this 4 to the cell, the 6 onto the 7, then this 10 comes over onto the jack. Actually, we'll move the jack and the 10 over into this empty space right here. This 9 goes on the 10. Now what's tricky here is that we have to get to this jack and this 6. We need to free up 3 spaces in our cells so that we can move these 3 cards to the cells. So how are we going to do that? I think we're going to do that by moving this card to the cells like this, then moving the 9 here, the 8 here, then we can move the 7 and 6 like this, and the 5 here. Now we can move this 4, and this 2 can go to the foundation. This 6 can come over here, revealing the king. We play that, and we can move the 5 and 4 of clubs out of the cells. Now this 3 goes here, and we can already finish our first foundation, the heart foundation. Now we've got enough cells to do this. We move the ace to the foundation and the 2. Now this 6 can go here, and the 7, 8, 9, 10, and jack. And now the game is pretty much won. We can move that 3, and then this whole pile here goes over like that. And the rest of our diamonds go onto the final foundation. So that was our first game of Penguin. Pretty simple, but quite a lot of fun. Queen to jack, queen to jack, queen to jack, queen to jack. Alright, let's play another one. I love this deck, by the way. I showed this deck off in my first Try Peaks video. If you're not subscribed to my channel, I'm doing a series where I play the solitaire game Try Peaks with every deck in my collection. I have over 80 decks in my collection. So far we've only gone through 16 of them, so that series is going to be going for quite a while, but I think it'll be nice to get all my decks just on video. And I showed this deck off in my first video in that series, and I really love it. As I said in that video, the only downside you could say with this deck is that it is a 4-color deck, so you can't really play games that require 2 colors, like Klondike or stuff like that. But that isn't even necessarily a flaw with the deck. While it does mean you can't really play certain games with it, it still works perfectly fine for games that don't rely on 2 colors, and Penguin is a great example. think this is a wonderful deck to use for Penguin. Now, if I had a deck with penguins on it, I think that would be the only thing that would beat it. But I do not have any decks with penguins on them. So let's deal out our second game of Penguin here. And our base card is 2 this time. So we will deal out our tableau and keep an eye out for any 2s. There's one. Put that off to the side. There's another 2. There's our third 2. So our second game is dealt out. Let's see what we can do here. And right away I'm seeing we have 3 aces on top, which is bad because our base card is a 2. So having 3 aces on top is basically like having 3 kings on top. It's pretty bad. I am seeing that if we empty out this pile here, we do get a 2 and a 3. And we can also do this. Let's move this 7 to the cells right now. Then we can take this 3 to the foundation. Now I think I'm going to start moving these cards to the cells here. And when we get to the 5, we can take this 5. Or sorry, this 4. We can take the 4 to the foundation. And we'll move this 3 to the cell right now. But it will only be there temporarily because once we get the 2, we place that on the foundation. And now the 3 comes out of the cell like that. Now we could either place this ace here, or we could take one of the other aces. I think we're going to take this ace, because now we can play the 3, the 4, and the 5 all to the foundation. Now let's see, where are our other 3s? We've got one right here. That's actually our only 3 left. This 6, this 4, and this 5. I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to move this 6 to the foundation here, then this 9 onto the 10 right there, and we'll move this. I said the foundation, I meant the cell. And we'll move the 7 to the cell as well. Now we get the 3, and we can move this king over here. And that means we can take this queen out of the cells as well. Now I think I want to empty this pile right here to make room for this ace. Can we actually do that though? We don't have enough cells right now. We can. We can move this queen over here. Then we can move these to the cells. This 9 can go on the 10. This king goes on the ace. And now we get this 6. And we get this 7. And this ace, king, queen can go over here. However, I'm actually wondering if this was a mistake, because now we only have 1 cell remaining, and I don't know if we can do anything with it. Oof, it's looking like I might have put myself into a dead end. We can't get rid of any of these 3 cards in our cells unless we can get to the ace, but we have 1 too many cards. Wait, there may be a way. So it was looking like there might have been something we could do, but I don't think we can. What I was thinking of was moving this 10 to the cell, then this goes to the foundation. Then we can move this 10 down like this, but that doesn't really help. We're just one cell too short to do anything that we need to do. If we could get to this jack or this jack, that would be good, but both of them are covered by 2 cards and we only have 1 cell. So it's looking like I bungled this one. That's unfortunate. So that's going to be our first loss of the night. Hopefully our only loss. We'll probably play 2 more games. So, even though this game has a high win rate, it's not trivially easy. You still have to plan through your moves if you want to win. And in that game, my planning was insufficient. This time, I'll try to be a little more thorough. Alright, let's deal out game number 3. And our base card this time is a 9. So we'll keep an eye out for 9s. There's our first one. There's our second 9. And our third 9. And here we go. Game number 3. No 10s that we can immediately get. There is one here, and one here. I think I'm actually going to dig into this pile right here. We'll put the ace to the cell. Then we get the 10, put that on the foundation. We'll move this to the cell as well. We'll be able to get it pretty soon, actually, I think. Because we've got the 5 and the 3 and the 6 right here. And the 8 is also pretty close by. We'll take this queen as well. Now, let's move this queen and this 7 and this 3 to the cell. Now we can move this 5 over here, and then the 4, and then the 3. This jack will go to the foundation. Or sorry, the cells. I keep saying the foundation instead of the cells. And this 2 can come over here, and then this ace goes on top. And we'll put this queen right here on top of the king, and the jack on top of that. And this 9 starts our 4th foundation. we've now got an open space. We can put an 8 there because our base card was 9. So let's move the ace and the 4 to ourselves, then this ace to the empty space, this 7 like that, and then we'll shift this entire pile right here over onto the 7. Now I'm going to move the 7 and 6 of hearts to the cells so we can get to this 10, and then we can take the jack, queen, and king. And now let's move the 7 and 6 back from the cells. Let's move this 4 of hearts to the cell, then take this 10, and we'll move this 7 over here onto the 8. And now finally I'm going to move this 4 into a cell. Then I'm going to shift this 8 and 7 into the empty space, and this 6 on top. We can move this jack to the foundation. Then we'll move this 3 to a cell so we can take the ace. We'll move this 6 to a cell as well. Now we can take the 2, 3, and 4. If we move this 8 to the cell, we can now take the 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now our spade foundation is complete. Let's move this king and ace to the foundation, the diamond foundation. And now I want to get to this 10 right here. So let's move this 2 to the cell, then shift the 8, 7, 6 into an empty space. We'll move the 5 on the 6. This queen can go to the foundation, and then now we get the 10, the jack, and the queen. Now let's move this 4 and 3 right here, freeing up the king. And we'll put this 2 here, and this game is pretty much solved. We just have to get the rest of these cards onto the foundations, which is pretty simple. And just like that, we have solved game number 3. All right. 2 wins, 1 loss so far. Oops, that was not the greatest spread, but you can see. Let's give it a better spread, actually. That's a little better. So 9 to 8, 9 to 8, 9 to 8, and 9 to 8. We're going to give it one more game. Let's hope that we can go 3 and 1. 2 and 2 wouldn't be too bad either. But of course, winning is more fun than losing most of the time, so. I love open games. That is the category of solitaire games where all of the information is given to the player from the start of the game, and they can plan out all of their moves in advance. Some other common examples of open games would be Free Cell, or Beleaguered Castle, or Baker's Dozen. Those are some other fairly popular open games, and also some of my favorite games. It's actually been quite a long time since we've played Baker's Dozen on the channel. I might have to do another Baker's Dozen video pretty soon. Baker's Dozen was actually the very first solitaire game I did on my channel. My first ever video on this channel was uploaded January 1st of this year, and it was Baker's Dozen. And my audio quality was a lot worse back then. Let's give this one more shuffle and we'll do our final game of Penguin. Alright. Game number 4 of Penguin. Our base card is 10. So let's keep an eye out for those 10s. There's one. There's another. And our third 10. I've actually been wanting to cover Penguin for quite a long time, but I've always had other stuff that I wanted to do. But I'm finally getting to it, which I'm happy to because I really like this game. Alright, pretty good start because look at this, we've got 3 jacks on top. So right away, we get 2 cards to the foundation. And once we dig out this 10, we get another one. And there's a queen right underneath that. So a pretty good start so far. I think we're just going to dig straight into this pile. So we're going to move the 9, 7, 7, and 6 to the cells. It's a little scary, but we can move the king, the queen, and the king to the foundation, and then we get the 10 as well. I think I'm doing a bad job of keeping all of this on screen right now. And now we get this jack, and we get the queen. Now, where do we want to go from here? We can move a 9 into this empty space, possibly this one. We also want to get to this jack and to this queen. I think I'm going to dig into this pile because we get both the jack of clubs and the queen of spades. So I'm going to move these 2 to the cells. Then we get this jack and this queen. Now I'm going to move this 9 right here. Then I'm going to move this ace to a cell, this ace to the foundation, this 5 to a cell, and then we move the 8 and 7 of hearts over here. Now we get the queen of clubs, the king of clubs, and the ace of clubs. Let's move this 4 to the cell so we can then put the 7 and 6 on top of this 8. So we put 1 to the cell to get 2 back. We get 1 cell as a result. We can also move this 6 of hearts over onto the 7. I didn't see that. Let's move this 4 to the cell. Then we can move this king to the foundation and this ace as well. Now this 5 can come over here. I think I want to dig into here. We'll move the 5 and the 3 to the cells. This 2 can go to the foundation. Now we'll move this 8 onto the 9 and this 7 onto the 8. Let's move this 6 and 5 like this and the 4. I'm going to move this 2 of diamonds to the cell so we can take this 6 of clubs and then the 5, the 4, and the 3 of clubs. We can can also take this 2 of hearts and move it to the foundation like that. Let's put this 9. We have to choose between this 9 or this 9. I'm going to actually do this 9 because then we can shift the 8, 7, 6 on top of it, and now we make room for this 9. This 2 can now go to the foundation. This 5 can go here, and it's looking like we have pretty much solved this one. Just have to get the rest of these cards onto the foundation, and now we have officially solved it. So there we go. We went 3 and 4. Pretty nice. Like I said, over 99% of the deals are winnable in this game. So the deal that I lost was almost certainly due to misplays on my part and not due to any sort of luck. Which is part of what is so fun about games like this. When you win, you know you deserved it, and when you lost, you know you also deserved it. And that if you played better, you could have probably won. And that makes these sort of games very satisfying to play. So that's going to be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. This is quite a fun game. I hope you'll give it a try if you thought it looked interesting. If you'd like to see more solitaire games like this one, consider subscribing to my channel. We also play other sorts of tabletop games, like tabletop RPGs, mainly 4 Against Darkness has been the tabletop RPG we are playing lately. And that's been a lot of fun. We're also doing another series, which I started a couple weeks ago, that people have really been enjoying. And that is that we are playing through the computer game Myst. And I've been getting a lot of really positive comments on those Myst videos. So, if that sounds interesting to you, you can consider subscribing for that as well. And thank you to everyone who leaves likes or comments on my videos. I really appreciate it. But for now, that's going to be it. So, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great night and sleep well. Bye.